Terrific. Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Adrian from Community Data Solutions, and joining me today is Aviv, our Product Development Manager. Thank you all for participating in our second webinar, which is our CommunityCI Webinar. Just want to make sure, can everyone hear me okay? If someone can give me a thumbs up, that'll be fantastic. Perfect. Thanks, guys. Terrific. So just to get started, it's going to be a short webinar on CommunityCI, and we're expecting this just to take about 30 minutes. And what we're going to cover today is what is CommunityCI, product demonstration by Aviv, and then some question time as well. Just to note that this will be recorded and shared afterwards. And if you have any questions, post them in chat. We will record these. If we have time at the end, we can answer them. If not, we'll follow up in an email afterwards. So just to get started, I'd like to describe what is CommunityCI. And to understand what CommunityCI is, I wanted to go through a story of all of our products so we can get a really good understanding. So everything starts with you guys. So with an organization, staff and users, as you can tell, I've got a picture of somebody with a lot of spinning plates because you guys do quite a bit. And what you do is you record everything into our CRM database. So with this is things like your client information, events, high sensitive data, all gets recorded in that, and then it goes to funders, or you also use it for reporting. One of the other add-on tools that we have is our Community BI tool, which we covered in last webinar, which is basically and essentially an enhanced reporting tool that allows you to export data out to third parties, but also you'll be able to build your own reports, and you can also be automatically emailed reports to your staff. So where does CommunityCI come into it? Well, CommunityCI is a lot like Community BI, as in it integrates directly with the database. So staff, your users can access it via the database, but what it allows you to do is it allows you to have access for clients, third parties, and in some cases volunteers to be able to record information into the database, and also for you to be able to receive forms and send forms and assessments out to these parties as well. And of course, it also can link directly into enhanced reporting. So what is CommunityCI? It's web of forms. It allows registrations and inquiries, allows third-party data entry into the CRM, sending and creating outcomes assessments and instruments, sending pre-filled forms to clients or to third parties to fill out, forwarding forms and assessments to third parties, and of course, to be able to send forms for authorization and approval. Now I'm going to invite Aviv to share his screen and to go through the demo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aviv. I'm the Product Development Manager in Community Data Solutions. I hope you can all hear me. Adrian, can you tell me whether people can hear me now?
Yep, and I can see your screen. Can some people give some thumbs up? Make sure. Perfect. I can see some thumbs up. Here they come.
Fantastic. So we have a pretty dense demonstration today. I'm going to get stuck right into it. If you do have questions, please post them on the chat of the meeting, and we would try our best to answer all the questions, okay? So I'm just going to go through this feature by feature, and hopefully it all makes sense. The first feature we're going to talk about is a client registration. Sometimes we want to we qualify the client for a service and we want them to register. That would save time for the administration process. Also allows us to create a registration form that also can create a casework. So we know already the client is eligible for financial counseling, and we can create both the client record and the financial counseling record within the CRM. Today, we're going to demonstrate creation of a client record. This is a two-step process. The first step, the client needs to fill in the personal information so we know whether they are a repeated client or a new one. So, for example, we would have sent an email to Barbara. Barbara Paramount, and we ask her to register, and Barbara would register. All this information here is up to you, what you want to capture. You don't have to mandate an email address. You don't have to mandate a mobile phone, but in this case, we're going to demonstrate how we can capture all these things. We have this security feature to make sure you don't get spam. But again, you can remove it if you think it's too much for your clients to register, because sometimes it asks them to click on some pictures and things like that. So that can be removed, but we recommend to have it. The first step is generic. The second step is completely customizable for you. Okay, so you can decide whether you want to start with collecting consents. You can decide whether you want to ask any specific questions. You can decide based on the nature of the registration whether you need to collect particular information. For example, if you need to report a client to a system called the data exchange, you would like to ask more questions. Otherwise, you may not want to ask all the questions. So in this case, we're just going to say a few generic questions. Who is your next of kin? So that would be Ryan, amount, and the number is 0432. And the street address would be 214. I'm just putting my office address so it's easy because, yeah, I know it very well. And the site in this case is South Australia. And here are the questions that you would ask. You can ask anything you want. You can ask, what is your country of birth? And that would be England. What is the language you speak? So, oops. So that would be English. What is your gender? Female. I'm not an Aboriginal. I'm not homeless. A couple with dependents. So these are just examples. And again, you don't have to ask anything about disability. It really matters of what is the nature of the service you provide. While I'm filling all those things, I would say that you can have multiple registration forms. You can have one registration form for one process and another registration form for another process. So for the homelessness service, you can have one registration form, and for financial counseling, another one. Okay, so I'm just finished the form and I'm going to click submit. And I'm going to also go with you now over another process, which is called client registration. So while we're going to, which is called client inquiry, while I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to ask Adrian, if you don't mind, to trigger the import process. So what I'm going to say, why did I ask Adrian to do that? Our import process into the CRM operates every 10 minutes through a scheduled task. So I've just asked Adrian to shortcut it so we don't have to wait 10 minutes. And he's going to do it. And shortly, we're going to show you how the data we just filled in comes into. In the meantime, I'm going to talk about the other client interaction that we have. For example, you may want to link to your website, your public website, the ability for people to inquire about services, and for that services to go into the inquiry module in the CRM. So in this case, we're going to have a client called Kevin Phillips, who was born on a particular date. Oops, sorry about that. Kevin wants to inquire about the financial counseling service. So he's going to put that. That actually doesn't make sense. That's a bit too young. So let's give Kevin a bit more appropriate age for financial counseling. And I'm just going to finish this because it's mandatory. And I'm going to go to the next step. So very similar to the registration, the inquiry is more about what services this customer or potential customer may want. So can we call you back? Of course, it's a good question to ask. What's the best way and time to call you? Please call mobile after 5 p.m. Okay, so he answered. Sometimes you want to collect some address information so you know whether the client is within your service capture area. So in this case, the client would say, I am living in Surrey Hills. I don't even know the postcode, so I'm just going to make it up. And what services do you want to inquire about? So I need some accommodation. I also need some employment. I also want to talk about some financial counseling, okay? So the client will record all this. Any other services required, some debt relief, and the nature of inquiry. All these things are up to you, whatever you want to ask in inquiry form. And again, you can have multiple inquiry form. Assistance with accommodation and rent. Okay, do you provide a consent to share the information? This is a good question to ask. And at that stage, we submit the inquiry. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to ask Adrian to import this again. But in the meantime, what we're going to do here, we're going to look at the first client that we have already imported into the CRM. So let's have a look at the new clients that we have. So we're going to go here and we look at anyone new that came. So what was the name? That was Barbara. And we just can see it here. I hope you can see it on my screen. So here is Barbara Paramount. We just imported her through a registration. I'm just going to make my screen a bit bigger so you can see. So this was just captured today. You can see these are the details I've provided before, the mobile phone number. Everything was actually captured at the address of our office that I've nominated in the form we saw before. We said she was born in England. She speaks English. So you can see all this information has came through the registration. So this registration form is supposed to be once you qualify the client for the service. And the good news, you can send them the request to fill it in via mobile, via email, or you can actually give them a tablet as they come to the reception before the intake session and ask them to fill it in there. We're not going to demonstrate all this because we don't have all the time, but I can assure you that we can do a follow-up with you and show you how to use the tablet. Okay, so Adrian, did the inquiry came through? Can we show that?
Yep, absolutely.
Fantastic. So, actually, I am not sure that I allowed myself. I've got a limited access here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly go into the same system as an administrator and show you the inquiry. Okay, inquiry. So here again, inquiries received from the website, and Kevin Phillips that we just made an inquiry just came through. So again, you can see how you can open your inquiry stream 24/7 through your website by allowing people to do inquiries after hours. Now, this is very useful because your reception is obviously working only during work time. So again, you can see that Kevin inquired about accommodation, employment, and financial counseling, provided some residential address, which we don't have a corresponding input, so it's all captured here. But you can see the contact details, you can see everything, and you can follow up now with Kevin. But just in case you can qualify them, we also have the ability here to quickly turn them into a client. So you can actually go to the inquiry, say that you have resolved it, and say that you would like to create a new client from this. So we're going to create this client and link that inquiry to them. And now the CRM will convert that inquirer into a real client. So these are two productivity tools that we would like you to consider in order to streamline your service, reduce the administration process, and also making sure that you offer clients opportunities to inquire out of hours. So that is a very useful thing. So you can see now we have a client here. We can view the record, and that client actually came from inquiry. Yes, we are still missing some information here. So what are we going to do next is ask that client send them another form with some more information and ask them to complete that information. That form would be that registration form that we discussed previously. Okay, so now what we're going to demonstrate to you is the ability to actually send someone information and ask them to update it. So this is what we call a pre-filled form. Okay, I'm got here another screen. This is a screen about a fictitious client called Morticia Adams. And what I'm going to do with Morticia has been in a service a long time ago, and now she's returning a year later to the service. And we would like to confirm that her information is still accurate. So what we're going to do, we're going to ask Morticia to actually send us a pre-filled information, and we ask her to fill it in, and we're going to see what she can do. Okay, so let's just create one. Okay, so when we create a form, it's actually called CI assessment, but we can call it whatever you want. We can see we've got multiple forms we can ask, okay? So it's not just registration. In this case, we have a coronavirus questionnaire because this demo was prepared a long time ago when coronavirus was around. Still around, but it's less of an issue. But we also have this client registration form. And that form can come with as a blank form, or can come as a form that is used update. So it's pre-filled information. I'm just going to wait for this to load, and I'm not sure why it's not loading. Hopefully we don't have an issue with this. Just this system is a bit slow at the moment. I'm just going to do it once more. Okay, so click on that. While this is loading, I'm not sure because it's actually talking to the CommunityCI system now. So I'll just show you. When you send the form, you can fill it in yourself as a case worker or practitioner. You can send it to the client via email. You can send them via SMS. You can also send it to a third party, like a school teacher or a government employee that needs to fill in the form on behalf of something, or via SMS. Now, I can see that this system is not actually loading. So in order not to waste time, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you some pre-filled forms that I've created a minute ago. So I'm just going to drop this. I'm sorry about that. We will actually get back if we have a bit more time. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you some forms. Okay, so just give me a second. Here I have a set of forms that I've done this morning, okay, just a short time ago. This form for a client called Cleo Mendelssohn was actually sent a few minutes ago and just wanted to save some time. So all we ask her, Cleo, is to actually update the form. And I'm just going to show it as if I'm Cleo, but she would have received an SMS or an email, or in this case, it may be a form that is sent to a practitioner. But what it comes, the form is as a pre-filled form. So a lot of the information is pre-filled. It comes from the CRM. For example, the caseworker is Phil Brown, is doing an NDIS task of a coordination of support. This is Phil Brown user information from the CRM. This is the participant information that is here. All these things we already know. What we don't know is additional information that is required and we want to fill it in. So here, discussed community access and employment opportunities. And you can also nominate some support information that you want, like community access with support worker. You can say how many units. Okay, this is very NDIS, but you can apply the same concept to any service you want. Employment training, including resume building, and nominate all the information you want and complete it. When it's completed, there's also the opportunity to inject that information back into the CRM and populate your CRM. So the reason we have this process is in order to allow you to communicate with your clients and update information. And it's not just the client. This form is more suitable for working with practitioners rather than with a client. But there's information for clients, information for practitioners. And all those forms also have the ability to add authorization as well. So if we look at this form, for example, the other form we had there, this form is a form that was already authorized. So we're just going to look at that. Let it load. Okay, so this is the same form we did before, but this form, in this instance, I've done it this morning, and I sent it to authorization. And you can see that a program manager called Felicity have authorized it and signed, and also the caseworker field Brian has signed, and the form is complete. So we have those form process, we have the ability to authorize, we have the ability to lock the form so it cannot be changed further. But also, if you think about the concept of care plans for anyone with aged care or any other type of support, you can create what we call the living digital form. So that is a care plan that can be updated on request every time the circumstances of your client changes, and you can actually change it, and you can check through the report all the variation and the changes and the history of the form. Okay, so this is the use of forms that we discussed. The next thing we are going to discuss today is the primary reason that we created CommunityCI. Okay, so for that, I'm just going to log again into my demo just to make it a bit less cluttered. I'll log in as myself again. Give me a second and we'll show you some forms. Okay, so here we have a family support case for the Carter family. And one of the clients in the CAM, his name is Philip Carter. And today, Philip came for a counseling session. And in those counseling sessions, we want to get, after every counseling session, we want to get feedback and use some outcomes form. Okay, now CommunityCI support over 50 different type of outcomes forms as that are out of the box available, but they're also the ability to build anything at all, whether it is bespoke, invented by your own organization, or whether it is a licensed form or assessment that another organization have qualified and you have the right to use. Okay, so in this case, we just demonstrate the process. So again, we go to the session, we will create an assessment, and we would choose from a range of assessments available. I'm just showing you that we have few here, that just a few examples. Here is some North Carolina assessment scale, DASS21, Personal Wellbeing Index. Some of you would be familiar with some of those names of those forms. We're going to demonstrate a really, really quick and short one called Outcome Rating Scale, because I don't want to hold you for too long. And while I'm loading it, I would also say, yes, you can select it as a pre-service or as a post-service. You can even define the phases of the intervention based on what the instrument you use is. Okay, in this case, typically we would send it to the client, as we said, but in this case, we're going to do it as a practitioner, just to make sure that we can do it quickly and we don't have to send things. But again, you can also schedule them. So I just wanted to show this is a form that is going to be triggered now. You can schedule it to tomorrow. You can schedule it to 4 weeks from now. You can schedule it or choose a day that you want. Okay, we're going to do it right now. Okay, so now the system is going to send a request to CommunityCI to prepare the form. The form is going to be prepared in a few seconds, and then we're going to click on it and update it. Yes, this can take a few seconds, but ultimately, people get used to it. It's pretty quick, and it will load pretty quick for us. So this is a very quick form. It's a very common form in the family support. The purpose on this form is just to assess the well-being of a client with very few questions. So we're asking them to tell us how they feel today from a scale of 1 to 10, and they would either drag it or click it or saying however they feel, and overall I'm feeling 7.5, and I'm going to complete it. And this form, its purpose is to tell the practitioner at what point of the intervention the client can stand on their own feet and they don't need the support anymore. Okay, so we finished filling the form, and because it's outcomes, we also need to talk about outcome in terms of reporting. What can outcome help you with your day-to-day? So for that, I'm going to jump and show you quickly CommunityCI. I'm just going to show you a few reports. This is actually CommunityCI, but before people say, what do we need to log to another system? You don't actually need to log to another system. Your reports will be delivered via CommunityCI, but also via your CRM. Okay, so any report that is available here will be available into your CRM, and we don't require the users to jump to another system. Okay, so this is just an aggregated report that talks about the service as a whole. The purpose of these kind of reports is to explain what works well and what doesn't work well. Let's look at a few examples. For example, here, we're talking about the proportion or the percentage of families that have gone above the baseline, or what we call have achieved an outcome, which is a positive outcome. So we can say that for parental capabilities, for example, in the area of family support, in the beginning of the intervention, only 30% of the parents were deemed to be at the appropriate level, or what we call the baseline. We know that because all of them were feeling, or the practitioners were feeling, what we call the baseline assessment when the intervention started. At the end of the intervention, 76% were at or above the baseline, because obviously the intervention helped them to increase their parental capabilities. So this is just percentage, but some things have not worked well. For example, in the context of social and community life, we had no one was capable to be above the threshold that we considered an outcome, and at the end, still no one was. So there's no data here. In this case, this is all fictitious data, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay. You can look at the data from a tabular information. For example, we're using this one to assess what specific area of the intervention are not working well. How do we know that something is not working well? We know it because we can tell what percentage of people have regressed, have actually done worse at the end of the intervention than in the beginning. So for example, in the area of relationship between the children and the parents, 25% of participants have regressed. So this is something that as an organization we would like to discuss and say, why is that happening? Is it something that we can help or prevent? Okay, so this is just examples, and again, this is fictitious data, so you don't have to look at it too much. I'm going to show you one more outcome report that talks more about a specific client. Okay, so this is not about the whole organization as a whole or the whole service as a whole. This is just about just one client. In this case, we are going to look at a imaginary client called Sarah. So I'm just going to search for Sarah. And I'm going to load the data for Sarah, okay? So again, we are using as an example the North Carolina Family Support Scale. The first report we see is for every outcome entity within the North Carolina instrument, what happened when the client filled in the intake form and the closure form. And in this case, they also fill in a form once halfway through the intervention. So for example, housing stability, they started with a real difficult problem or moderate problem. At the three months benchmark, they were considered to have a mild problem. At the closure, they were considered to have a strength. Now, this is housing stability, so that's something you need some commentary to understand what actually happened here. Safety in the community, again, we can see improvement. We can see improvement across the board. This is a really good success story, although it's an imaginary data. So going further, we can start looking at some case note or commentary that we've done to actually substantiate the information that the instrument tell us, because we ask the practitioner to enter information, some commentary about it. So as they fill in the questionnaire, we ask them to put some commentary. So for example, in the area of the environment, they said that in the intake, the client had a poor housing stability and high risk of homelessness. At the closure, they had a new home that assisted the family to make significant changes in both lifestyle and relationships. The physical environment is no longer an issue. So this is something that whether the intervention had anything to do with it, I don't know. And obviously the data is not real, but it demonstrated in terms of context, you can see how outcomes instruments can translate to real evidence-based practice. Okay, so that is a little bit about outcomes. Now, Adrian, I believe we got pretty much to the time that we allocated to ourselves. So perhaps we're going to move to some questions if we can. Back to you, Adrian.
Absolutely. Let's have a look and open up. So thanks everyone for still staying on. We do have a few questions. So Aviv, some of these questions I think we can answer definitely on the spot. So does CDS have a ability to do a duplicate client check?
Yes. Duplicate client check occurs in two spots. First, it occurs as the client starts filling in the form, and we immediately inform the CRM that this is the same client. So for example, you can ask us to build the rule that if the client is the repeat client and they registered, just create another case for them, or just send an alert to the caseworker or the service coordinator to say this client is a repeat client. But yes, we have duplicate check both at the CRM level and at the CommunityCI level.
Perfect. Thanks, Aviv. And thanks for posting that question, Ross. Laura has a question, which is, can this tool be completed in languages other than English?
That's a great question, Laura. We currently have in New South Wales an organization that piloting outcome questionnaires in Arabic and Vietnamese. It can be done in any language that is browser compatible, and most languages are. So even languages that are right to left, like Arabic, can be used. Is absolutely not a problem.
Perfect. And the other question in the Q&A is from Warren, where he asked, can you put error checking in the fields, for example, like phone digits, postcode according to suburb?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So first, with regard to error detection, you can nominate what is mandatory and what is not. But in regard to the actual content, yes, for phone numbers, we actually connect to the Australian phone number registry, so we can validate whether the phone number is real or not. With regard to emails, we can detect whether the email pattern is correct. We don't actually confirm whether they made, if they put Aviv at test.org.eu, we won't check it, but we will just check that there is an @ symbol and it is a legitimate Australian domain, so to call. But we won't check that the email is actually going to end up going to them. If the client actually registering for the service, they will get a confirmation email to say that the registration has been successful, and will ask them to click and verify that that is the email that they used is their email, to make sure that people don't register on behalf of someone else and fake the identity. We call it double opt-in.
Terrific. So I'm just going to give this a refresh. I think that's all the questions from Q&A. I'm just going to go over into the chat area. There's Sabian asked if can conflicts be automatically declined. I can answer that one. That in regards to the conflicts, it really depends on what area you're wanting to reach out to. So I might reach out to that to you individually in regards to that as well, because I think I need a bit more information. Oh, I saw in the CI assessments, fantastic. Are in sessions, are they in cases too? Okay, so with the CI assessments, are they located in just the client profile, in cases, and in sessions? Or can we be choice?
Yeah, the assessment located in multiple places. So first, on the client record itself, you can send them forms that are related to the client in general, so they are not service specific. Then in the case itself, so that would be like care plans, case plans, forms in general. In the session, anything which is session specific, like if you want information, like an outcome instrument that then generates a report to the SCORE database, then that would be session specific. And finally, you can also have forms for your workers and for your volunteers, okay? So you can have volunteer registration form, you can have a volunteer profile update form, you can have a volunteer training forms. So a whole lot of forms that can be done, but the point to make, forms are related to an individual, so we need to have an individual at the end of the day, whether they are a volunteer or a client, they have to be a real person.
Yep, so they need to be a real person, and it can be recorded anywhere, essentially. The other question is, if a SCORE form is sent, can it be automatically integrated into DEX reporting?
Yes, it is already in place. So, for example, organizations that use the Personal Wellbeing Index or the K10 or any of the outcome stars one, anything that the data exchange have sanctioned as a compliant instrument, yes, they are translated to SCORE and they can be integrated into your reporting.
Perfect. Thank you, Aviv. So that answers all the questions, and I know that we've just gone over by 7 minutes, which is really cool. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Aviv, for going through that presentation and the demonstration. I will share the recording and I'll send an email out to everyone afterwards. And if you have any questions or want to get in contact with us, please don't hesitate to reach out to us via inquiries at communityds.com.au or sales@communityds.com.au, or reach out to your account manager. All right, guys, take care, enjoy your day, and thanks again for joining.
Thank you all.